welcome back. Those 3 pancake locks you've seen, I received them in a closed position and without the key. As you've seen, I have opened 2 of them. I actually opened all of them. Okay, and here I'm gonna open with boom. All right, they're all open. Some are easier to open, some are not. Okay, some can be opened in minutes, some require half hour, different attempts. A variety of angles here and there. The important thing about it is don't give up. If method 1 doesn't work, move on to method 2. And don't try each method once. Try 10 times each method. Okay. One of them is bound to work. Okay, and I'm going to explain to you exactly how to use each of these tools, each of these methods. Okay, and at the end we'll go through troubleshooting, because these locks have put up a fight, to their own degree. Okay, so number 1, let me just get this out of the way. Number 1, whether you followed making this tool like the lock butcher did, you could use that. If you invested some time, it's only about half hour's work. You did this. Okay, this tool is still great in a pinch, all right. But if you, like I said, if you want to invest some time into this, make yourself this tool, all right. Okay. So when you get a padlock, let's close this up. Okay, when you get a padlock, first thing you want to do is, of course, check. You see the spring for the hasp works. You look inside, you see the levers. They're not really jiggling inside. You see them all. Okay, keep in mind these locks are 100, some are over 100 years old. This was made before 1902. Okay, you could see the newer ones. They have a little dot, right? Well, rather not a little, but a circle here above the H. That means it was made after 1902. Okay, just a little history there. So this lock is over 100 years old. Keep in mind, within that time, dirt, grease, grink, everything was in there. Okay, so they're dirty. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. All right, but, make sure everything is moving around, right? Now, method 1, all right. You're going to take this tool, loosen up the tension that they're kind of moving around, but not too loose, all right? And you're going to stick the key in, slowly going in and out. At the same time, depress the hasp, put pressure on the hasp, try in, try out, try a combination like this, all while doing this. Basically, what's going to happen, one of those levers is going to bind, moving on to the next, to the next, to the next. And all while these will start to take its shape, and boom, you have the key. Okay, keep in mind, again, this is not going to work on every lock. All right, let's try it here, see what happens. All right, you see, it's kind of already maybe taking a little bit, but the first one, it really wants to go down. Sometimes it might be the tension, so you might need to loosen it or tighten it, depending on what. All right, but let's say this method failed. All right, this method failed. We're going to go on to the next one. You're going to take your tension probe, I'll call it that. And what you're going to do with it, let me just show you a diagram I drew. What you're going to do with it, you're going to take your tool, okay. You're going to, first of all, sorry, I also forgot to mention, there's a mark here. Make a mark. Anywhere on it, it doesn't really matter. I made mine at 845. Okay, you're going to make a mark here. What you're going to do is you're going to take this tool. I'll just use this end because it's bigger. You want the measurement. Sorry, let me go back a little bit. If the first method doesn't work, the next method is actually measuring where those gates are. Okay, in order to do that, you take this tool. Okay, this tool right here. What you want to do to measure 1 is you want to take the tool, depress the 2 adjacent levers, lever 2 and 3, depress them all the way as far as they can go, and they can go about somewhere here. Then move the tool against number 1 and slowly come up, chick, until it catches the gate and it's in the gate. Okay, now depending on how thin you made this part right here, if you made it too thin, it's gonna push in and lever 3 is gonna pop back up. It's not a problem. Okay, what you do is you take another piece of wire. When you're ready to get it out, you depress this wire and you pull it out, or you pull your probe out. Now let me show you what I'm actually talking about. So here it is, right? Let me just measure. Let me see where the Third one is okay. No, maybe not. Sorry, this is a little hard with the camera here, but come on. There we go. Boom. Okay. And because everything is 90 degrees, this probe is standing in there pretty straight. Alright, it's not going too much to the side. What you're going to do next, you're going to take your calipers and you're going to measure the distance from the body, and make sure you're at always a consistent point on the body, because if it goes in a little bit here, as you can see, it goes into the cut, it's going to give you false readings, well, different readings every time. So make sure it's on the outside of the body and measure off wherever your point is. Okay, then write that down as I've done here. Okay, I wrote it down. Okay, when you're done, you're going to take the tool out. If it doesn't come out, it's okay. Take another piece of wire, depress the adjacent one, then it'll come out. Then you move on to the second one. You do the same thing with the second, third, fourth, and so on. Okay, until you have the measurements of all of them. All right. Once you have the measurements of all of them, and just don't mind this for a second. Once you have the measurements of all of them, like I have right here, you're going to take the smallest one. Okay, the smallest measurement, whatever it is, let's see what the smallest one for here is. Right here, number 2 is the smallest one. Okay, then you're going to take this measurement and you're going to subtract this measurement from each of them except number 2. You're going to take number 2, 321, subtract from 356, 375, 425, 392, and so forth. And then you're going to get new measurements. Number 2 remains at a 0. Okay, you're not doing anything to it. Alright, so this is what you're going to end up with. Then you take your tool. Okay, now this is also important. Several people have tried this method and said it fails, and I've tried and failed myself until I realized that when you have the new measurements, you set your caliper to whatever, let's say it's 35. Okay, you set it to 0.035, and you start setting your tool. Okay, whatever it is. Lever 1 is 335. Okay, now lever 2 we don't touch at all. Alright, that's actually from the point that you start measuring. So level 2 stays at 0. Make sure this is all straightened out. Okay, and if it's not, just straighten it out with something flat. And then from lever 2 you're going to measure your 35, then you're going to measure your 58, and so forth. And you're going to keep going, you know, you're going to keep going this, whatever it is, do your measurement, and then tighten the tool up, and there you go. That's going to be your bitting. That's going to be the key that's going to open it. Alright? Now, if that's not going to work, it's okay. Don't give up. As you could see here for this champion, I've actually decoded it 3 times, and each time my numbers were a little off. The funny part is, even when I still got the lock open, these are the actual numbers. You could see I was off by 1,000ths. I was way off on here. I was about right here. I was about off here. About 10 off here and about 13 off here. So you could see, even with the measuring, you're still off. So just keep trying. Sometimes what happens is the cuts, let me just get all this all the way. The cuts are so high that this method won't work. Okay, because as you could see here, when the second lever in this picture is depressed all the way, as you can see, it could only go a certain space. All right, and it stops right here. So if you have a cut that's a little higher than this, your probe is not going to catch on to anything because the cut is higher than the next lever can go. All right, in that case, you move on to this tool. Okay, that's the last wire we spoke about. All right, with this wire, what you're going to do is you're going to take the wire and you're going to go between the levers. You're going to have the 90-degree facing down, stick it in between, turn it, and then pull it out until it catches the gate, do the measurements, and repeat what we've spoken about here. All right, depending on how old your lock is and how much use it had, the spacing between the levers, the spacing, it could be very tight or it could be very loose. If the lock has been used for 40 years every day, 5 times a day, then the spacing is going to be very big, you know, relatively to the lock, very big, and you'll be able to get something in there no problem. If the lock was barely used, like for example, this Yale I have here, the spacing between them, I couldn't even get anything as far as 8 thousandths thin. All right, so the spacing, I mean, you could just see by that the lock was barely used. So you're gonna have to make yourself something thinner. All right, if that doesn't work, make it thinner. Now again, keep in mind, you're working with probes, you're working with wires. Things tend to get stuck. Don't panic and start yanking it out. You could damage it. You could break your tool. I mean, if you're using this is 12 thousandths, I believe, or 18 thousandths, something like that. If you're gonna go smaller, it's thinner, it's weaker. If you're gonna yank it out, you could break it inside. Okay, then you're stuck with additional metal inside, which could break the lock, or start rubbing against the spring, and the spring breaks, and then the lock is less usable, valuable, and so forth. All right. So make sure to always have another piece of wire or something else handy. All right. Sometimes. For example, let me get this Yale back here. With this Yale, I tried probing, and the spacing between them was so thin, I couldn't get really anything in there. And if I would have made something thin enough to get in there, chances are I would have bent in between. All right. But I was able to use this tool and only probe out lever 5 and 6. So basically lever 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 I couldn't get. But it's okay, as you can see, the lock is still open. All right. With this lock, what I did was I pulled on the hasp, and I stuck the tool in there, and I noticed that they were binding. So what I did then is I took a piece of rope, I tied it here, tied it on my foot, and with the power, with the strength of my back, pulled this out. Okay, at that point, they were binding, and I was able to take this tool, going in and out, and they were actually binding inside. Now, at that point, once they were binding, I set the first tool to whatever it was, okay, but it still didn't open the lock. So what I did was I put the tension out again with the rope, stuck this in, they bind it to their own level. I did it a few times, and then I have the second one. So I loosened the second one and stuck it in, and it took a different impression, and that one actually worked. All right, so some locks, like I said, can open very easily. Some require more time, more trial and error, but at the end, they will all open, okay? The beauty of this tool is, even if possibly a spring or two are broken inside on the levers, this tool will still work, okay? Now I'm going to briefly talk about lubricating and cleaning these locks. If you're going to go straight into probing, clean lube the lock right away. Like I said, I would recommend you first take the easy method, use this tool in and out while playing with the shackle. If you're gonna do that, don't do anything to the lock. Don't lube it, okay? You want those levers to bind, and if you put lube in there or any kind of oil, it's gonna be much harder to bind. All right, so you basically make things harder for yourself. To open these locks, just follow this method. First, in and out, try to push out, push in on the shackle while playing with this several times. Different angles, like this, like that, okay? If that didn't work, move on to the probes. All right, and the probes, one of the two will definitely get the lock open. All right. Another important part, when you've actually probed and you have your measurements and you set your key from this side, not this side, you set your key from this side. I'm sorry, tool. You set your tool from this side. Let me just grab this one right here, right? That's the key for it. Okay. When you've measured it, you probed each lever, you subtract the smallest one, you got your measurements, you set it here, you stick it in and it still doesn't open. That's fine. You might be off by a little bit, as I've shown you. I was off on this lock. So you just play with the angle, all right? You could be a little off, and this angle might help, or this angle might help. You know, keep going back and forth while inserting it slow. Don't start sticking it in there and going all crazy, right? This is an old lock. I mean, it has springs that have been in this lock for 100 years. Alright, I think I've touched on everything. Luckily, if I haven't, I have the third video that if I did forget something, I'll mention it in there. So stay tuned. Like I said, Jeff's lock should be arriving at my door tomorrow, and we'll continue the series. I also want to give some credit to Lauren. He's been a gent who I've been dealing with at keeppicking.com. He also has a lot of his work at Lockpicking 101. If you guys are into these old locks, these or any kind of lever locks, you should definitely check out his work. He's actually just finishing up a book, which is going to be filled with a lot of amazing things, and you can believe I'm definitely going to be buying one. I'll also, like I said, link up the Lock Butcher's channel to YouTube. He's also an amazing gent, with coming out with great videos. Okay, I don't want to keep rambling. Thank you so much for watching. Questions, comments, anything, I'm always welcome to positive, negative, any kind of interaction with you guys. And I'll see you in the third video.